Well, hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Philanthropone and I'm back with another top 3 video here, this time for the final month of the year, December 2017. I also wanted to say real quick to look out for my top 5 video for the best Vive games of 2017, which is a video I'm really looking forward to making and it will be a big one. Anyways, so without further ado, here are my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games for December 2017. Number 3, Orcstar. Unfortunately, I was a bit disappointed with my gameplay footage for this game because it's so hard to see what I'm doing since everything was so tiny. So sorry about that, but I have to be honest, I almost didn't even make a video for Orcstar at all because it was a space strategy game. And mainly, with my experience with those type of games is that they have super steep learning curves and I just don't have the patience to learn them mainly, but Orcstar is different, and thanks to a pretty decent tutorial, it was quite easy to pick up and play. And I will warn that if you're looking for a VR RTS with very deep gameplay mechanics, then you might be disappointed with Orcstar, as it's missing some crucial RTS elements such as an economy system. But the gameplay is a blast if you ask me. The goal is to command fleets of ships to conquer planets, asteroids, warp gates, and more. Once a planet is conquered or captured, whatever you want to call it, ships will be automatically produced for you to increase the size of your army. The most crucial gameplay feature in order to do this successfully, in my opinion, is the ability to choose what percentage of ships you would like to move from planet to planet. Oh, is that what this is for? I think? To send 50% of your troops. That's pretty sweet, actually. I remember the other game I played had something like that, but I think you had to just drag a circle around the number of troops you wanted to take. But I can only assume that this percentage is the percentage of ships that will leave from one planet to the next, which is really sweet. The game also feels like a very complete package as it offers a campaign, skirmish, and multiplayer modes. The game currently goes for $14.99 on Steam. Number 2, Shooty Fruity. Shooty Fruity was a breath of fresh air because it was the first Vive game I've played in a while that was actually a complete game and out of early access when it launched, and it really is the whole package. The game combines job simulator-like and wave shooter type gameplay, and I don't really like to use the term wave shooter for a game like this considering that term has become rather derogatory in the VR community, because Shooty Fruity is a lot more than that. It's one of the most polished and complete VR games I've experienced, with super wacky, fun gunplay and some great comedic dialogue from a superior you hear over the intercom as you play a new employee at a supermarket.
Welcome to your first day as a Super Mega Mart employee. After a rigorous selection process, you have been selected from an extensive pool of excellent candidates. Your ability to show up vaguely on time and correctly write your name shows exactly the kind of drive and initiative we are looking for.
The levels usually involve performing job simulator-like tasks, while an onslaught of living fruit attempt to thwart your hard-earned progress. There are a ton of different weapons to unlock and tiers for each weapon type. Using the guns is rather hilarious as you don't even have to reload them. When you run out of ammo, the gun breaks apart and all you gotta do is grab a new one that comes by on a carousel rail. So for those of you who think wave shooters are too easy or job simulator games are too boring, try doing both of them at once and you're in for quite a challenge. The game currently goes for $19.99 on Steam. And number 1, Fallout 4 VR. When I considered Fallout 4 VR to be in this top 3 video, I looked past all of the double standards that people have applied to it. Yes, I know there are performance issues with the game still, but I made this pick with the assumption that the devs will patch the game and fix performance issues for those of us who are unfortunate enough to get the Windows 10 Fall Creators Update, which is a cause of massive performance issues with the game. But I said this with Doom as well. Could you imagine if this game wasn't called Fallout 4 and was some random indie game called Beantown Gets Nuked or something? Could you imagine the praise this game would get even in its current state? The game is totally playable, and we're talking about hundreds of hours of gameplay, which is unheard of in any VR story-based game. In comparison, there are amazing single-player story-driven games like The Gallery and Form that are beloved by many, and those games have 5 hours of gameplay or less. They also offer very little replay value, but guess what? Fallout 4 doesn't have any replay value because there is so much friggin' content that you won't ever need to play it again when you're through with it, most likely. The VR version of Fallout 4 features all of the content as the original, and one thing I was pleasantly surprised with was the controls and how well they work on the Vive. They definitely take some getting used to, but it's probably the best they could ever have dreamed of making them for VR, as the game takes full advantage of pretty much every single function of a Vive controller you can think of, and relies heavily on swiping the Vive's trackpad when operating the Pip-Boy, something that not a ton of VR games even utilize at all. Like I said, the game is totally playable in its current state, at least for me it is, and I'm running the game with no workarounds to aid performance. Let's just hope that the people over at Bethesda continue to work on improving the performance issues with this $60 Vive game, making Fallout 4 VR the most expensive Vive game ever to release. And that's it for this one, guys, and remember that I will be doing a top 5 video for best Vive games of 2017, and I'm looking forward to that. And as always, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and let me know what your picks were for the best Vive games in December. So that's it, guys. Thank you once again. Until next year, peace. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Philanthropone, and I'm back for the new year, here to give my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in January 2018. I've already played some great games, and there are a lot of awesome titles set to launch this year, and the Vive Pro is coming out, so I'm really excited about the HTC Vive and what it has in store for 2018. I have no honorable mentions, so without further ado, here are my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in January 2018. Number 3, Mortars VR. Mortars VR took me by surprise. Normally when I see a game that costs only $1, I don't expect much, but for only 99 cents, Mortars VR brings some awesome multiplayer fun where you control your own personal mortar cannon that you use to attack other mortar combatants. The rules are quite simple. You hit another player and your mortar tower gets taller, you get hit and your tower gets shorter. You will need to use trial and error methods to guess the trajectory of each of your shots. Not only that, but there are other variables one has to take into account, such as wind speed. There are also tower classes, so the gameplay never gets stale as each class has its own unique set of weapons. Not only is the game fun, but the level of polish is amazing for what you pay. Had I not known the price going in, I would have easily believed the game was at least in the $10 range or more. And I think part of the reason why the devs made it so cheap is because they don't really have a choice considering how hard it is to populate multiplayer VR games with players who will play it regularly. The visuals are also great as long as you don't mind the more kind of cartoony, colorful look, and I cannot think of a single hiccup I ran into in my experience with the game so far. So what else can I say? It performs flawlessly and is a heck of a lot of fun. Number 2, Primordion. I'll never forget my first impression of Primordion in my first 15 minutes of playing the game. I could not believe how incredibly smooth the game ran for having such amazing visuals. There's no ghosting, flickering, or frame rate dips at all when you turn your head from side to side or move your hands around, and everything just works amazingly well. And the jungle setting you're put in and everything from the enemy animations to the gorgeous glow and particle effects makes Primordion one of the best looking games on the HTC Vive. The fast-paced, frantic sword combat is a blast, and the ranged weapons are also super fun to use. It's definitely not perfect, but few games are when they first enter early access, and it appears to have a promising future as the game continues to get patched up. Now, I haven't finished the game, but it does look like there is a good amount of content as well for the $25 you pay. The one thing I think the game needs to add is a better kind of tooltip system, or just a better tutorial on what everything does exactly. But it isn't a super complicated game, so most people will be able to pick up and play it. I had someone play the game without even reading the tutorial text at the menu area or whatever, and they managed playing just fine for about 20 minutes and didn't even die once. But that's not to say the game is too easy either, because it isn't. It can be quite challenging, but it just goes to show that the game is very playable right from the get-go. The game, like I said, currently goes for $24.99 on Steam. And number 1, Subnautica. Subnautica is a renowned open-world survival game that has been in early access for a long time, but it just fully launched in January. Now, normally I wouldn't include a game on this list that isn't a VR exclusive, but I couldn't help myself here. It has quite possibly been my most enjoyable desktop game to play in VR, even more so than, dare I say, Fallout 4 VR. If you saw my video for the game, you'll know that I did try this game about a year ago in VR, but I got motion sickness because I used a mouse to turn. But using an Xbox One wireless controller while standing up allows the player to physically turn when they want, which eliminated all motion sickness issues I had before, and I just love it.
So the reason why this no longer gets me motion sickness is because standing up and using a controller, I'm able to physically turn, as opposed to using a mouse or using the right thumbstick on my Xbox One controller to turn, which would get me sick.
It may not be as immersive as using the Vive controllers, but I have still really enjoyed it, and if anyone is interested in trying the game with this method, you will need an Xbox wireless PC adapter, or you can probably use a Bluetooth dongle and a PS4 controller as well. The game has amazing visuals, it performs great, and all of the same gameplay mechanics and features from desktop mode can be done in VR as well. What's cool is you can play the same game on either desktop or VR, so if you're feeling lazy some days about playing the game in VR, you can still play your VR game saved file on desktop. The game currently goes for $24.99 on Steam. And there you have it, guys, my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in January of 2018. The new year is off to a pretty good start, I would say, for Vive games, and I cannot wait to continue these videos once the Vive Pro launches. And as always, I'd appreciate it if you guys liked the video and let me know in the comments what your favorite Vive games were for January. So that's all for this one. Thank you once again. Until next time, peace. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Philanthropone, and welcome back to another Top 3 video here, this time for the month of February 2018. This month was a little bit slow for Vive games, but I played 3 that were pretty clear winners for February. I have no honorable mentions, so without further ado, here are my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in February of 2018. Number 3. Summer Funland. I have always hoped for one day having a theme park VR game, and that wish came true with Summer Funland. And a little fun fact is that the game actually first appeared on the Oculus Rift over a year ago and was called G2A Land because it was created by game devs for the Polish digital marketplace company G2A, before being rebranded as Summer Funland when those developers decided to go independent. Anyways, the game definitely isn't perfect, but it's easily the best theme park VR game that I've played. Unlike another one I tried months ago that got me motion sickness for pretty much every ride it offered. Some of the rides and attractions in Summer Funland are very far-fetched and don't aim for realism at all, but that's what makes them so amazing in my opinion. They put you in scenarios that in no way would be possible in a real-life theme park. And at first glance, the game may seem innocent enough for parents to show their kids, but some of the rides are super intense, namely Underwater World, where jump scares are definitely present.
Stay back. Oh, holy crap! Oh, what the... Dude. Okay. Okay. Abort the ride. For this ride. Like, you have to be this tall to ride because it's scary. Woo-hoo. Oh, yes, please be. Oh, no, not darkness. What is that? Oh my gosh, dude, this is not cool. I told you.
Also worth noting real quick is that you collect a star for each attraction you complete, and once you get 12 stars, you unlock Gates of Time. I won't spoil anything, but it's nothing fantastic, so let's hope that the devs add more rides and attractions down the line. Number 2, In Death. In Death is a bow shooter with some of the best bow mechanics you can find in a VR game, and probably has the best looking procedurally generated levels I've seen. Games with randomly generated levels such as this usually have very simple, blocky graphics, but the visuals in Death are quite gorgeous. Each game can be vastly different from the next, with the ultimate goal being to conquer the game's achievement system and leaderboards. The game definitely fits under the practice makes perfect category, so to speak, as it definitely takes practice and let alone time to unlock achievements that grant certain perks. But once you master teleporting, which you do by using a specific arrow or a teleport shard, you can become the ultimate bowman.
I want to avoid the big hall down there. Oh, this is a much better choice. Wow. Something creeps up behind. Dude.
Speaking of specific arrows, there are also different arrow types to be found, such as fire arrows, scatter shots, and triple shot arrows. As far as difficulty goes, the game offers a pretty stiff challenge and feels pretty well balanced for its procedurally generated design. Although a randomized system such as this means you might hit the lotto with an easy level layout, or be torn to shreds when the first room you encounter has like 10 bad guys in it. Furthermore, don't expect the enemies to stay in front of you the entire time, as they can teleport around, which can trigger the occasional jump scare. The game currently goes for $19.99 on Steam. And number 1, Sprint Vector. While I often praise VR games for having good stories, visuals, and polish, it's only been on a few rare occasions where I praise a VR game for simply being a heck of a lot of fun. The last game probably being 2MD VR Football. But Sprint Vector is hands down one of the most captivatingly fun games I've ever played in virtual reality. It's an e-sport where you run, jump, climb, and fly while racing against 7 other opponents on super wacky courses that actually have a lot of Mario Kart qualities such as power-ups. What first started as a somewhat frustrating experience became an absolute blast once I mastered the controls. So if you're only just starting out, I recommend giving it some time before writing it off as being too difficult. First off, the tutorials in the game are amazing and should be the gold standard for how developers design VR tutorials. There was voiced audio and video examples as you actually learn the controls yourself with no walls of text to read. And I understand that walls of text are very economical and that it saves a lot of time and money for developers, but as a player, I absolutely hate learning a VR game that way. Anyways, in Sprint Vector, what comes with super fun gameplay is also accompanied with polish, and while it does have a few issues with online play, the game is refined to its core, which is pretty much a must for a game that relies so heavily on a fine-tuned control scheme. The visuals and animations are also great, and the characters are unique with their own quirky personalities and a number of one-liners in their arsenal of voiced dialogue. So what more can I say? The game is incredible and currently goes for $29.99 on Steam. Oh, and expect to break a sweat as well. And there you have it, guys, my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games to release in February of 2018. As always, guys, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to know what my favorite Vive games are every month. And let me know in the comments what your favorite Vive games were for February. So that's all for this one. Thank you as always. Until next time, peace. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am Philanthropone, and I am back once again with another top 3 video here, this time for the month of October 2017. The month of October wasn't the greatest for Vive games in my opinion, although my number 1 pick was an absolute no-brainer, and I have one honorable mention, and that game is Oregon Quarter. And I know a lot of people after seeing this video will probably think that that game should be in the top 3, but I honestly didn't play it enough, and I only want to include games on the list that I've spent a decent amount of time with. So without further ado, here are my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games for October 2017. Number 3, Kartong. Kartong is a first-person stealth game that has one of the coolest art styles I've seen in VR. As I mentioned in my video for the game, it reminded me of a cross between Budget Cuts and Little Big Planet, which is one odd combination. The gameplay isn't groundbreaking, but I love the imagination behind it, and for the price of only $5.39, I can easily recommend checking it out. The game is set in a miniature cardboard city where the player is a test subject who has to survive some dire experiments using weapons made out of things you would buy at Office Depot or Michael's. The levels basically feel like you're in a school project made by a 10-year-old kid that was transformed by a deranged sociopath from a horror film.
Really cool. I love just the whole graphical art style. Everything is made out of like the stationery section from Target. Look, they're cardboard buildings, giant pencils holding things together, popsicle stick, street lamps. Basically now we want to collect pins. See, they're like your projectile weapons. Look at this. This looks like the Little Big Planet guy. And he's just like, his head is mutilated. Jeez.
The player has to rely on stealth and careful movement, with the ultimate goal being to reach the end of the level, which changes each time you play. You probably won't be playing the game for months and months, but it's definitely worth checking out if you appreciate unique art styles in video games with lots of detail. The game currently has a 92% positive review average on Steam, and I will note that the price may be back up to $8.99 by the time this video uploads. Number 2, Marshmallow Melee. Marshmallow Melee is a dungeon crawler where the player controls 2 to 3 tiny marshmallow warriors who can be equipped with various types of weapons and helmets. The weapons range from fish bones to swords to cactuses to roosters to bow and arrows, and the helmets provide unique special abilities such as healing, for example. Players can also upgrade their weapons and stats via a shop that appears every few levels. The first word that came to mind when I started playing Marshmallow Melee was polish. I ran into little to no bugs, had no performance issues, and was surprised that the game was even in early access, as it feels like a pretty complete experience. The gameplay is fun and very easy to learn, and you basically have to defeat a number of monsters in each level and avoid various obstacles like lava, spiked traps, and bumpers that can knock you over the edge of the level. Each level lasts for only a few minutes, so things are constantly changing, which gives each new level its own unique set of challenges. Also, if you're a fan of kiting in video games, namely in MMOs, then you can take great advantage of this tactic, and I was able to solo a couple of levels with one marshmallow dude who had a bow and arrow using this method, which was pretty cool, I must say, and kinda cheap. And number 1, The Gallery Episode 2, Heart of the Emberstone. All I can say is look out for this one being on my top 5 list for best Vive games in 2017. I'm not sure where it will rank exactly, but it's guaranteed a spot. The game immensely lived up to the hype in my opinion and exceeded all of my expectations. It's the best sequel I've played in VR, and I'm astonished at how well the devs continued this epic saga with gameplay that was entirely revamped for this episode, mainly because of the use of the gauntlet. If you were to play episode 1 today, some may argue that the gameplay would feel outdated now that the Vive has been out for about a year and a half. So there was some concern on my part that may carry over to episode 2, but boy was I wrong. Unlike the first episode, the gameplay revolves around the use of the gauntlet, which lets you levitate objects and is key to solving a lot of the puzzles. And if you watch my videos regularly, you may know that I'm very picky when it comes to puzzles in VR games, and I have to say, Heart of the Emberstone absolutely nailed it as far as balance goes. They were creative and challenging, but just below that frustration threshold that I often gripe about in VR puzzle games, which made solving them extremely gratifying and rewarding. One of the coolest puzzles in my opinion were the glorified loop wire games, so to speak, that you often have to complete in order to unlock doors or activate elevators. The goal is to guide an object through a mini obstacle course without coming in contact with anything. If you fail, you gotta start over.
I was so far. Oh.
I will admit that unfortunately the game does lose a lot of its 1980s nostalgia that I loved about the first game, but there are still cassette tapes to be found. The visuals are absolutely gorgeous, and although most story-driven games offer little replay value, I can easily see myself going back to play the Gallery Episode 2 at least one more time. The devs claim you can play Episode 2 without ever having played Episode 1, but I'd recommend doing Episode 1 because A, it's part of the story, and B, it's an awesome game as well. You can pick up Episode 2 for $29.99 or get a bundle with both games for $45. As for the game's length, playtime will vary, but it took me around 4 hours to complete, which is about double the length of Episode 1. And there you have it guys, once again my top 3 favorite HTC Vive games for October 2017. As always guys, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to know what my favorite Vive games are every month. And leave me a comment letting me know what your favorite games were for October. And let's all hope that more awesome Vive games release in the month of November. So that's it for this one, thank you once again, see you next month, peace.
Last month, I showed you 50 free games for the HTC Vive. Well, here's 50 more free games, in no particular order. The Ranger Lost Tribe is an action RPG with exploration elements and stealth elements. It's really large and really polished, one of the most polished free games I've ever played. You really need to check it out. Ripple Effect is a collection of all kinds of VR minigames. There's quite a bit of variety in here, lots of different experiences. Definitely check it out. Wake Up is a dream adventure, and it's really beautiful, really nice music. It's a gorgeous experience. You have to try this game. The game Nick is if you cross Santa Claus with Call of Duty Zombies. It's very similar to classic Call of Duty Zombies, where you have to board up a window to keep the oncoming horde of bad guys at bay. Instead of zombies, it's these toy gnome type things coming at you. These little guys are actually pretty creepy, I think, and they startled me a few times. But it's a really well-made presentation. Definitely check it out. Warhammer Vermintide VR Hero Trials is a really stupid name of a game, but the game itself isn't half bad. It's a miniature wave shooter where you're trying to stop bad guys from breaching the gate. Pretty well made. There is a multiplayer mode, but I couldn't find anyone to play with, but I imagine this in multiplayer could be pretty fun. Portal Stories VR is a free mod if you already own Portal 2. For a community-made mod, this is exceptional. It is really polished, it feels legit, and if you already own Portal 2, you simply have to try this.
Good. You solved 3.52 megabytes of science.
Accounting is one of the funniest VR experiences I've ever had. I don't know a good way to describe this, but I think you just need to dive in and check it out yourself. You should know, though, it is not for children. There's a lot of mature content in there.
It's important. not supposed to take that thing out of there?
Gary the Goal is a VR interactive animated short film, and it supposedly changes the story depending on how you interact with Gary, whether you speak using the microphone or shake your head yes or no. I wasn't totally convinced that I was actually changing the story in any way. It's a really nice presentation though. Visually, it feels like a Pixar movie. Unfortunately, it is really short.
Land-walking squid shark! What? Squid shark? Where? Over there!
Aiken's Call, or Aken's Call, Act 1, is a role-playing game with some exploration and a fair amount of sword combat. It's a really solid experience, and unfortunately it's way too short. It'll leave you wanting more. The Red Stare is one of those games that I cannot believe is free. It's so polished and it's such a fresh experience. You're a special agent in the 1950s, trying to decipher who spies are across the street from you. It's a fresh and ingenious take on VR room scale and motion controllers. It just feels right. You have to try this yourself. I cannot recommend it enough. Raygun Commando VR is an arcade-style on-rail shooter. That's pretty much all there is to it, but it's pretty fun. Dimensional Rift is if you melded a soccer goalie game with some kind of a sci-fi game. You have a sword and a shield, and you're supposed to stop these objects flying by you from getting past you. It's a very simple game, but quite addicting too. In Disco Destruction, you're a disc jockey charged with keeping customers happy and dancing, and that way they keep spending money at the bar. And the more money they spend at the bar, the higher score you get.
Did you know that the
Admersive is a really interesting educational experience. What it lacks in graphics quality, it makes up for in content. There is a ton of stuff to go through and learn. It's really fascinating to think this could be what school is in the future. Arachnophobia warning though, there's a couple of big spiders in there.
you project on them, millions of years from now, they can have a very different setup.
Freedom Locomotion VR is a really fascinating experiment that showcases every possible way you can move in virtual reality spaces. From walking in place and jogging in place, to sliding, to teleporting, to walkabout locomotion. There's a lot of customization, a lot of options, and really interesting to see all the different ways that you can move in big spaces in VR. This one takes a while to get into because there's a lot of configuration and options to get through, but once you do that, it's pretty fun to explore all the environments and to find out all the different ways you can move. Halp is a very short game, but it makes up for that in charm. You're trying to help these little robot dudes repair their ship, and the game isn't very long at all, but the presentation and the polish and the charm really makes up for it. I recommend it.
It's a good thing you came along. It'd have taken us months to fix all this.
In Hot Squat, you play sort of an obstacle course that has you do lots and lots of squats. That's about all there is to it. If you're looking for free exercises in VR, you found it. Avem 33 is a flying obstacle course game where you steer the ship by tilting your head left or right, not moving your head. I found the controls really awkward and hard, but it's possible that you'll like it. And in my opinion, Polyrunner VR is a much superior version of a flying obstacle course game. I found the controls much more intuitive, and I had a lot more fun playing this one. Pumpkin Sculptor VR is a Minecraft-esque pumpkin carver, so you can make some jack-o'-lanterns. But what's really interesting is that the entire environment is sculptable. It feels like there's a lot more to do here, like maybe some things to discover. I could be overthinking it, but I enjoyed this. Polydome is an abstract musical sequencer where you're creating these nodes and creating this music to play all around you. Pretty simple, but pretty interesting too. And Soundlights is a really similar experience where you're creating these bubble nodes that pulse and create music around you. A little more open atmosphere, a little more abstract of an environment. Pretty cool. Soundscape VR attempts to give you a VIP private concert all to yourself. The music is all professional copyrighted songs, and the visuals are really pretty cool experience. If you think this will appeal to you, you should check it out. The Professor Presents #GotHandles is a basketball dribbling challenge where this guy who's got a lot of attitude, I don't know who he is, challenges you to some dribbling matches. Pretty cool little execution, and if you enjoy basketball, you'll probably like this. VRIQ is a really unique puzzler where there's a bunch of light bulbs in front of you and various random actions will light up one light bulb. And you're not told what to do really, you just kind of have to guess and experiment how to light up all the light bulbs. Even some things such as stating a very specific word in the microphone will light up one of the bulbs. Check it out. B-Brawn Future Operating Room is a sort of science fiction future of what medicine could be. You get to shrink down and pick away at little things inside a cell. It's a pretty brief beat-the-clock puzzle challenge, but it's pretty well made. Delilah's Gift is a VR picture book created using Tilt Brush. You get to travel back and forth through this very abstract story told all around you, and there's some interactivity in here too. It's simple, but it's pretty. Realities has a handful of virtual tourism experiences. You get to travel to Death Valley, you get to travel to a castle and a cathedral. There isn't a ton here to check out, but it is a pretty solid experience.
We used over 350 photos in total for the reconstruction.
In Retni, or Retina, you're traveling through these various fairy tale storybook VR experiences with a quirky little guide who accompanies you and describes and helps you out on your journey. It's not a long experience, but it's really solid and fun for all ages.
Hey, would you look at that? I bet you didn't know butterflies can taste food with their feet.
ShotForge is a sandbox to build custom guns in. There's all kinds of barrels and chambers and triggers and all kinds of stuff to build your custom guns with. It takes a while to figure this game out. The controls aren't very intuitive, but for the gun lover, you're gonna have a blast. The Body VR Journey Inside a Cell is an educational experience that takes you through the human body. At first, I thought this might be boring, but it's really well put together. I recommend you give it a spin.
Next up are white blood cells, or leukocytes.
The Stanford Ocean Acidification Experience is a really well put together presentation showing how climate change is affecting our oceans. If you enjoy science, I think you'll like this.
Observe the chemical reaction that occurs when CO2 combines with H2O to create carbonic acid.
VR Multigames is 3 miniature VR games in one. You've got a drone fight, which has a gun and lightsaber against drones, Last Stand, which is a survival crossbow against bots coming at you, and some goofy goalkeeper game. Of those 3, you might like one of them. Big Screen Beta is a really fascinating desktop application in VR that lets people get together in the same virtual room and share their desktops together. This enables you to have virtual LAN parties in VR, watch movies together. The possibilities for interacting with others in this is really fascinating. I haven't gotten really deep into this yet, but this is really interesting. I think you should check it out. Chop and Drop VR. Take on the job of a line worker removing troublesome trees. Get out the chainsaw, move the bucket, and get some manly work done. Found is an interactive short film experience. This one is really special. I don't want to ruin it for you. Just try it out for yourself. You'll thank me later. Endless Night Alpha is a wave shooter with kind of a horror spooky theme. You got some ghouls and some flying things and some reapers coming at you. Be warned though, Wave 2 does have spiders. That's when I had to quit. In Goalie Challenge VR, you get to play the role of hockey goalie. I was pleasantly surprised because this game features multiplayer if another person is on a controller. So you can have another person on the controller trying to shoot pucks past you. So this could be a really fun party game. Kitten Cannon Not much of a point in me describing this, just watch a little bit of gameplay, you get the idea. I recommend it, it's pretty funny. Launch Squad Demo is a multiplayer combat game with every player armed with a goo slingshot. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any players to play with when I was playing this, but I imagine if you got some friends together, either online or in a LAN party, you could probably have a great time. Lucky Night Texas Hold'em VR. Well, this is the card game Texas Hold'em, and if you would enjoy this, you should check it out. Panoptic Demo. If you're familiar with the game Mass Exodus, this is very similar to that, where you have one person on the PC wandering as a tiny person, and the person in VR is a giant trying to spot the real human in the crowd. In Mass Exodus, you can have up to 4 people playing on one screen with the 5th person in VR. I think in Panoptic Demo you can only have 2 people total. But hey, the demo is free. Scanner Sombre Demo is a cave exploration experience where you are using sort of a LiDAR scanner to scan the environment around you, and that's how you see. This exploration mechanic is really unique, and I haven't seen it anywhere else. I should let you know this game has a horror theme behind it, because I don't think it's obvious when you're watching the gameplay, but just so you know. Somad or Somad, I don't know how to pronounce this one, but this was a real surprise to me. It's a party game where you have friends watching the computer monitor and one person in VR. The person in VR is exploring a self-overlapping VR maze to try and find the diamond. Everyone watching the monitor can give the person in VR clues as to where they should be turning in the maze. I was really impressed with how the maze was generated. It's utilizing your room scale in such a way that there's no teleportation or anything, it's just you walking, but it feels like you're going through this really large maze, but it just cleverly has you turning in the room scale that you have. I think this would be an amazing party game. I'm looking forward to playing this with others soon. Surgeon Simulator VR Meet the Medic is a wacky and gross beat-the-clock surgeon game where you're trying to give this guy a heart transplant using very strange tools and methods. I haven't been able to beat this one yet, but I think this would be a really fun party game too. The Wave VR Beta. This experience is really fascinating, and it taps into something more that VR could be. It's basically a virtual rave experience. They often host live rave shows, which unfortunately I haven't been able to join yet. But even outside of those scheduled events, there's all these different musical experiences to have. You can have your own DJ booth where you mix music with effects and use custom visualizations. You can explore this abstract dream place that gets you a currency that you can use to buy these sort of music rave toys you can play with. You can meet others in this space. I'm really looking forward to seeing one of the live shows soon. This is something you really have to try. I really recommend it. VR Chat is very similar to Rec Room. It's this social world where you meet other people and play all kinds of different mini games and explore all kinds of different places. There's a lot to do here. I've barely scratched the surface of this so far, and I really hope to dive more into this soon. Anyland is a very powerful world builder. There's a lot to this, and it feels pretty deep. But fortunately, there's all kinds of pre-built areas for you to explore and enjoy. A nice one is the Underground. The Underground features a labyrinth, a puzzle room, and all kinds of things to explore. And the Underground is just one area provided inside this game. There are many areas to check out, and more being built all the time. Really fascinating. Meshmaker VR is a really detailed 3D modeler in VR. It's very powerful, has lots of options, and unfortunately that comes with a lot of complexity. But if you're patient and interested in 3D modeling in VR, this could be really interesting for you. VR CAT is kind of a blend between Tilt Brush and a 3D modeler. There's all kinds of things to do in here, all kinds of settings of things you can create and paint. If you're into 3D creation, check it out. Well, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe. See ya!
Jag vet inte vad förväntas när man tar sina glasögon, men det jag vet är en ganska stor kyrka. Det är mycket människor som är på väg och förbereder stunden för en kyrka. Som går på den från att det har varit intressant. Vi har ju en historia i Namnstad. Berätta historia för att vi inte säljer den grejen. Den största utmaningen var att inse att här fanns det hav. Och det var inte alls som uppkom där. Så jag var bygga upp det istället och komma där här.
Hey everybody, this is Anthony from VR Game Rankings, and welcome to another Top 20 Countdown. This time we're doing the HTC Vive Top 20 Games. Now, the HTC Vive Top 20 Games was last updated on September 23rd. Later this month, we will have another HTC Vive update and we will have a brand new rankings. But I wanted to get a video out there. I wanted to represent for the HTC Vive community that has been very gracious in providing submissions. Their top 20 lists have come pouring in ever since VR Game Rankings was around. And so here we go. These are the top 20 games for the HTC Vive. So number 20 is Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. Yes, sometimes we describe this game as H3 VR. They have one of the longest titles of any VR game that you'll ever run into. Now, here's the thing about Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. This was an original launch game for the HTC Vive. This came way back when the HTC Vive launched. And when this game first started, it was basically a gun range with tons of guns, ammo, explosives. And the thing about this game that really set it apart was the attention to detail. You had to know how to put in your clip. You had to know how to get your gun ready, how to turn the safety off and get it ready to fire. It was all about detail. It was all about dialing it in and giving you that real gun range kind of experience. But Rust Limited, the developer, did not stop there. They constantly improved and tweaked the game and made it better and better with each update that they provided. Now the game isn't simply a gun range. There's a lot more that you can do with Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. This is one of these games, H3 VR. We hear about it so often, and it ends up on so many people's submission lists. This is another one of those really high-end games for the HTC Vive, and that is coming in at number 20. Now at number 19, we have Quiver. This is by Blueteak. This game came out on December 19th of last year, but one thing you need to remember about this game is it started off as a demo, and the developer was so very involved with this game. People could play it, and the developer kept adding more and more features. And it has this multiplayer capability where you're playing this bow and arrow game. We've already seen with Longbow for the HTC Vive by Valve that the bow and arrow mechanics really work well in VR. The haptic feedback of pulling back that arrow and letting the arrow fly, that's really what you get here with Quiver. And one of the nice things about Quiver is that the arrows will fly in a realistic flight path that is very consistent and predictable. Now, it does take practice. You have to get good at it, but once you get the feel for it, you can accurately shoot your arrows and have a good idea for where they're going to go because of that consistency, that predictability. The hit detection is also very solid. If you miss your shot, you know that it was your fault. Now, if there's any real downside to the game, the downside is that there's basically one primary environment that can get a bit tiring after a while. I have not played this game in quite some time, so maybe the developer Blueteak has added some additional environments, but the last time I was in there, it was essentially one environment, and you would take on waves after waves of enemies, and you would transfer from different locations, teleporting back and forth. You would have your multiplayer teammates that you would be battling the monsters with, and it is one of the better bow and arrow games that we have in VR, and that is Quiver at number 19 by Blueteak. Number 18, Space Pirate Trainer. Space Pirate Trainer was a Vive launch game. This game has been out since launch. This game is only $14.99. This is one of these developers that created a high-end launch game for the HTC Vive, and they've had the same price since the very beginning. If you want a solid title that you can get for a mere $15, Space Pirate Trainer is right up your alley. I'll never forget the very first time I played Space Pirate Trainer was the first month that I had my HTC Vive, and I remember when one of those drones shot a shot at me, and the shot hit me right in my chest, and I felt like my chest was caving in. I felt like I got shot by a real gun or something, and I fell down to the ground, and I just started laughing and giggling because I couldn't believe how realistic and exciting this whole thing was. I remember telling people way back at that time that when I play Space Pirate Trainer, it's almost like I'm on a ride from Disneyland or something. I was having that much fun with it. Now, of course, I've played so much VR now that Space Pirate Trainer is just another game among a lot of games, but it has polish. It is so finely dialed in. This is a game where you can put on some background music. It has its own music, but if you want, you can turn off the music, you can put on your own music, and you could just have a ton of fun blasting these drones that keep coming out in waves, and you can keep trying to improve your score. Space Pirate Trainer is by iLlusions. This game, again, came out at the Vive launch. It's only $15. That's our number 18 game. Number 17 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is To the Top by Electric Hat Games. Okay, this game launched back on May 18th of this year, and I have to say that of all the games that have come out in the year 2017, To the Top is one of my favorites. One of the things that this game brings to the table is fun factor. Do you remember that phrase, fun factor? I remember way back in the 90s, so many times we'd be talking about various video games and we would talk about the fun factor. Well, for some reason, it seems like we've forgotten about that, but Electric Hat Games hasn't forgot about it. This game is loaded to the brim with fun factor. You get into this game and you're climbing and jumping and running along, and basically it's almost like a first-person Sonic the Hedgehog or a first-person Arrow the Acrobat. It's like you're inside one of those games and you are the platform character and you're trying to get through this level as fast as you can. There's all kinds of different levels. They're very creatively designed, and then you have the incredible soundtrack of this game. This game has probably one of the better soundtracks I've heard on virtually any VR game that I've played to date. In fact, the soundtrack is so good, you might want to actually find out the real names of these games so you can listen to it on your drive to work. It's that good of a soundtrack, and the fun factor is just off the charts. It's so fun to move through this game so quickly. You're trying to find blue areas that you can grab onto and launch yourself to the next blue area, and you're trying to get through the game as fast as possible. It has that time trial factor where you always want to try it one more time because you know you can shave just a couple of seconds off of your time. That is To the Top by Electric Hat Games. Number 16 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Vanishing Realms by Indemo Labs. Now, this game has been around since the HTC Vive launched, and it is one of the best all-time VR games that we have. This was one of the first role-playing games that we got, and in the very beginning, a lot of people said this game was too short, it was over too fast, but I honestly feel like this is one of the best VR games I've ever played, and if you look at the amount of time that I've spent in this game, I've probably spent 6, 7, 8 hours playing this game. So people that say it's only 2 hours long, I don't know what they're talking about, because you're going to want to play it over again. It's that damn good. This game puts you into the dungeon. You are there. Your boots are on the ground. You're holding a sword in one hand. You got a torch in the other hand. The torch is illuminating the hallway. You're there. You feel a part of the experience, and you're going down these dark, creepy hallways. but they're magical. The music is playing, the vibe is intense, it puts you into that mood. This is a classic role-playing game. You battle skeletons, you have to avoid arrows. There's so much good gameplay here, and the environments are beautiful. They're simplistic and they're cartoony in nature, but they're absolutely gorgeous. You go outside, you look at the stars, you look at the moon, you look at the ocean. It really gives you that vibe, and it really lets you buy into it. That's Vanishing Realms by Endemo Labs at number 16. Number 15 is Elite Dangerous by Frontier Developments. Now, how many times have we played a space sim and we try to get extra monitors? You know, we try to use 3 different monitors. We try to use the HOTAS, try to put us into that experience and make us feel like we're really in the spaceship. But now we have virtual reality, and virtual reality can put you into this space sim experience like you would not believe. Frontier Developments have dialed in this game. They've updated this game. They continue to polish this game. This is one of the best space sims you're ever going to find. It puts you into that environment. Now, this is a detailed game. It is complicated. You're going to have to learn a lot of tips and tricks on how to maneuver your vehicle, how to launch your vehicle. It's not an arcade game. It's not a game that you're going to jump in and quickly understand right away. But if you want a deep space sim that will really get you involved into the experience, that is what Elite Dangerous brings to the table. So many VR gamers out there rant and rave about how good Elite Dangerous is. Many VR gamers have this as their absolute number one game, even after all this time. This game has been available since day one on both the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, and the price has now come down. You can get Elite Dangerous for $29.99, or you can buy the Commander Edition for $59.99. That is Elite Dangerous at number 15. At number 14 is Gunheart by Drifter Entertainment. This game came out back on July 31st, 2017, $35. Drifter Entertainment, the developer, has former members from Epic Games. There are people that have worked on Robo Recall that are working at Drifter Entertainment and have worked on Gunheart. There are people that have worked on the Halo franchise. There are people from Microsoft that have worked on HoloLens that are working at Drifter Entertainment. This is a primetime game. This game is similar to Destiny. It's more of a co-op experience. You can play with several other buddies, or if you want to, you can go alone through this exciting, entertaining game. You're going to be on alien planets battling these bug creatures and moving through the world. I can tell you, as I played this game, when I got into any of the indoor levels, I got a very strong Halo vibe from this game. For some reason, it really reminded me of Halo 3. Some of the interior corridors just had a real strong Halo flavor. The nice thing about this game is there's always people playing it. You can always jump in there and get a game. The developer, Drifter Entertainment, continues to polish this game, continues to refine it, and it's one of the more enjoyable multiplayer experiences that we have on the HTC Vive. Now, it's not a cheap game, $35, but it is a very solid title, and the developer keeps refining it and keeps updating it. At number 13, we have Dead Effect 2 VR by Badfly Interactive. Now, this game originally debuted on June 8th, 2017. It has now come out of early access, so this game is done. It is ready to go, and you can go ahead and pick this game up for $24.99. Now, Dead Effect 2, what this game does is it puts you into an environment very similar to Doom 3 BFG. You feel like you're in this place. The lights are blinking, the steam is there, the smoke is there, and then you have the zombies, but you have plenty of guns, you have plenty of firepower, there's a story, there's voice work. The voice work maybe isn't the greatest in the world, but it does have that polish, it does have that production value, and then again, you also have multiplayer options and you have co-op play as well. So you can play through this entire thing single player, or you can play it co-op, and there is also PvP options and multiplayer options. Dead Effect 2 by Badfly Interactive is one of the most intense and visceral games that we have in VR. It really puts you in that space. It can cause a little bit of that fight or flight experience that you so often get with some of these very intense VR games. It's borderline horror, but I'll tell you what, when you see these zombies up close, if you can take enough time out to actually take a look at these zombies, they are very well designed and they are absolute nightmare material, let me tell you. Of course, you're going to be so busy double pumping your shotgun and trying to take their heads off that you're not going to have a hell of a lot of time to look at them. But what you are going to have time to look at is the beautiful environments that Badfly Interactive have brought to bear on this title. It does look very similar to Doom 3 BFG, but it's not quite as dark and dreary. There's a little bit more light, there's a little bit more pizzazz, and it doesn't have the jank as well. This game has more color, more vibrancy, and it is intense. Let me tell you, it is intense. That is Dead Effect 2 VR at number 13. Number 12 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Racket NX by One Hamza. This was released earlier this year, but it was way back on January 31st. This game costs $19.99, and let me tell you, this is one of the best racket Pong games I have played in VR, bar none. And that is high praise because we have so many racket games, we have so many Pong games, and this is another one of those, but it's different. The thing that this game has going for it is it has haptics and sound design that combine together in such a way that when you hit that ball with your paddle, you really, really feel like you're hitting a ball with your paddle. What it is, it's the combination of the haptics, but even more importantly is the sound design. The sound design in Racket NX is second to none. It really puts you in that experience. The other thing about this game is about as 360 degrees as you're going to get. You're constantly going to be turning around. You got to be careful about getting wrapped up in your cord. I can tell you right now that Racket NX is going to be one of the best games to play if you have the TP-Cast wireless adapter for your HTC Vive, because this is one of those games where you are going to get tangled up in your cord because you're so involved in this game. It's a 360 game. It'll spin you around in all kinds of directions. The sound, the haptics are so good. The fun factor is off the charts. If there's anything negative I could possibly say about Racket NX, I would say that some of the voiceovers are a little bit goofy, but other than that, this game is fantastic, and it has some of the best multiplayer I've ever played in VR. I played a multiplayer session with this one guy, and it sounded like he was in the room right next to me. It was so clean, it was so crisp. We had a great game. We had a blast. The guy was a complete stranger, but we had so much fun. Racket NX, the best Pong racket game that you can get in VR, bar none. That's number 12, Racket NX. Number 11 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is A Chair in a Room by Wolf and Wood Interactive. Now, this game launched on the Vive way back in the very beginning. It's held firm on its $24.99 price point. I think it was on sale for a little bit lower price, and you should have bought it then because now it's back to $24.99. Now, A Chair in a Room is our number one horror game. VR Game Rankings has a top 20 horror games, and this game is number one. And the reason it's number one is because of the room scale factor that Wolf and Wood Interactive have brought to this. They've taken advantage of that room scale concept to put you into this environment where you really feel like you're there. And what this game does, it's psychological horror. There are some jump scares, there are some frightening moments, but it's really the psychological horror. You just don't know what's going to happen next. And it just grabs you and putting you into that room and putting you into that environment. A Chair in the Room is clearly one of the best horror games we've seen, and Wolf and Wood Interactive is now creating The Exorcist Legion VR. So we are going to have a new game from them that is coming out this Halloween the first 2 chapters of an episodic horror experience by Wolf and Wood Interactive. But before you play that, you gotta play number 11, A Chair in a Room, our number 1 horror game at VR Game Rankings. Number 10 on the HTC Vive Top 20 list is Climby by Brian Lindenhoff. Now, this game came out on October 25th of last year. It is only $10, and this game kind of started off this idea of having a platformer in VR. Originally, when I first heard about this game, I thought this was a ridiculous idea. Really? You're going to try a platforming game in VR? It sounds like a recipe for Barf City. But when you get in this game and actually try it, you find out that it really works. There's a demo for this game, so I highly encourage anybody out there, if you want to try Climby, go ahead and try out the demo, and you'll see just how enjoyable this game is. Now, the graphics are rather simplistic. It does have almost a Mario 64 look, and I kind of wonder if the developer, Brian Lindenhoff, deliberately went after a Mario 64 graphical aesthetic, because that's kind of what Climby has. This game ends up on so many of our submission lists. So many people rant and rave about this game. I've already talked about To the Top at number 17, which is another platforming type game. This was kind of the one that started it off. Climby was the first one that really hit, and now we have a lot of other competitors that are making similar games. We have Cloudborne, which is a climbing game that recently came out as well, but Climby at number 10 is easily considered one of the better climbing games that we have out there. And this game has been continually updated. There's also levels that other players have created that you can sample. There's a lot to love about Climby at number 10. Number 9 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Bullets and More VR. BAM VR. Now, this game is developed by Cohen IGZ, and this released back on September 7th of 2016. The price of this game is $15. So here's the deal with Bullets and More VR. We have games like Onward, we have games like Pavlov, and those games provide incredible multiplayer action, but the focus is quite a bit on realism. If you don't really want all that realism and you're looking for more fast and frenetic gameplay, Bullets and More VR is probably right up your alley, because this game is fast and frenetic. Now, from a graphical standpoint, this game is not necessarily going to blow your socks off with its graphical capabilities. It's very simplistic in its graphical design. Shipping containers, buildings, doors are all extremely plain and generic. But the bonus of this is it allows the developers, and it also allows gamers through a level editor, to create new levels and to put them together fast and easy. So you have virtually unlimited content from the standpoint of a variety of maps that you can play on with incredible fast action. Again, it's only $15, and Vive gamers have been ranting and raving about this game ever since its arrival way back in September of 2016. That is Bullets and More VR at number 9. Number 8 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Sorrento VR. Now, Sorrento VR is coming to us from Mixed Realms. This game released way back on December 21st, 2016. It is currently selling for the price of $30. Sorrento VR has risen up the charts dramatically over the last couple of months. This game has risen all the way up to the number 8 spot. And why is it? Well, it's because Sorrento VR combines this visual aesthetic of a futuristic Japanese cyberpunk along with frenetic wave shooter gameplay that you get from a game like Raw Data or Superhot. Ultimately, Sorrento VR is basically a wave shooter, but it's one of the most stylish and high-end wave shooters that we've seen up to date. Developer Mixed Realms also seems to be kind of going for a Max Payne Matrix type feel as well, because the slowing down of time is one of the key gameplay mechanics in this game. You can jump into the air, slow down time, shoot down some evil ninjas, then you land on the ground only to slice and dice a few more ninjas for good measure. It's this kind of high impact gameplay that is so exhilarating, and it makes you feel so overpowered. And they've added so much. The developers, Mixed Realms, they keep polishing this game, they keep refining this game and adding more and more to it. That is Sariento VR at number 8. Number 7 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Rec Room by Against Gravity. And so Rec Room is one of the more interesting Vive games that we're going to talk about on this entire list, because Against Gravity is basically giving the store away for free. Yes, you can download Rec Room and you can play everything within Rec Room. You can go into the lobby, you can talk to other people, you can play frisbee golf, you can play paintball, you can play all the different games that they have in Rec Room, including these new quest modes that they have as well. And it's 100% free. They're not charging any money for anything. Now you might wonder, well, what's the deal here? How is Against Gravity going to eventually make some money out of this thing? Well, obviously, at some point, they're probably going to bring in microtransactions where if you want to have a certain shirt, if you want to have a certain hat or whatever, you can pay a little bit of money and you can personalize your character, and that's how Against Gravity can make money. Another possible way that Against Gravity could make money is if they're purchased by another company. Rec Room could turn into a complete social experience that somebody like Oculus or Microsoft or HTC or who knows what company could want to buy Rec Room and have that their social experience that's branded for their specific VR headset. Anything's possible as far as that goes. So that's why Rec Room is 100% free, and it's one of the better games that we have on the HTC Vive. I lost countless hours to the paintball mode. I can't tell you how much fun I had with paintball, and that is number 7, Rec Room. Number 6 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Gorn by Freelives. Now here is a game that I have to admit I was very late to the party. VR Game Rankings has always gotten submissions that have ranked this game Gorn so high, and I never knew, what is this game Gorn? Why are so many people ranting and raving about this game Gorn? I finally got my hands on Gorn, and now I know what all the hubbub about. The thing about this game that takes it to another level is the amazing physics and the collision detection. We could be looking at quite possibly some of the best physics and collision detection we've seen in any VR game so far. This is a comedic gladiator simulator, and good physics and good hit detection is an absolute must, and Gorn has this in spades. Its extremely colorful and cartoony look is immediately pleasing. In fact, I have to say, when I'm in this game, it is so bright, it is so colorful, it almost has a Nintendo-like quality, which is kind of ironic when you think how much carnage is strewn across the arena as you play. You will see puddles and puddles of red blood all over the place, along with miscellaneous body parts. But the game is so fun. It's hilarious. This game is the modern day stress ball. This is the game that you want to play after a long, stressful day of work to unwind and take out some of your frustrations. You can bang on these brutes and you can knock the armor off them, and then you can start banging on their head and let the blood fly. That's Gorn by Freelives, ranked number 6. The number 5 HTC Vive game is Onward by Downpour Interactive. Now, this game launched way back on August 29th of 2016. The price is $25. You know, one of the interesting things about Onward, I had no idea that this was a 2016 title. I really thought this game came out earlier in 2017. And the reason why is because it seems like you just don't stop hearing about this game, and that it started more in 2017. So I think when this game first came out, it was kind of unknown a little bit. I don't think it had as much of a player base as it does now, but now everybody knows about Onward. This is one of the more high-end first-person shooter type games that we have in VR, but this is a realistic tactical military sim. This is not a twitchy Call of Duty type shooter. This game is deep and the learning curve is somewhat daunting. You'll probably be using every single button on both of your Vive controllers, physically pulling the pins on grenades and doing similar actions normally reserved for a normal button press. At certain points, you might even think that the controls are just too freaking involved, but if you stick with it, eventually you'll have all the necessary maneuvers memorized. This is when Onward truly shines, as you'll be able to take advantage of your shooting and dodging prowess without fumbling through the controls. But I can tell you this, we constantly get submissions with Onward ranked incredibly high, and that is why it has climbed all the way up to the number 5 spot on the HTC Vive Top 20. That is Onward by Downpour Interactive. Number 4 on the HTC Vive Top 20 is Arizona Sunshine. Now, this game has often been in the number 1 spot. In fact, it's a little bit surprising to see this game all the way down at number 4, if you can believe it. That is how dominant Arizona Sunshine has been. Now, Arizona Sunshine was developed by Jaywalkers in association with publisher Vertigo Games, and this game came out back on December 6, 2016. You might remember that is the launch day for the Oculus Touch. This game was originally shown off in a lot of HTC Vive trailers and commercials, and then we didn't hear about this game for the longest time. Some people even thought the game was canceled. Then all of a sudden we got word that not only would it be arriving for the HTC Vive on December 6th, but it's also arriving for the Oculus Rift on that very same day. And for many Vive owners, Arizona Sunshine was their first real taste at something legitimately AAA. Yes, we had the Gallery Episode 1 Call of the Starseed. Yes, we had raw data, but the arrival of Arizona Sunshine on December 6th could have been the first true AAA game that HTC Vive gamers have gotten their hands on. And this game is still one of the most high-end experiences you can possibly get on the HTC Vive. If you watch the television show The Walking Dead, this is the game that will put you into that experience. When you're in this game and you're holding your guns and you're walking across a bridge and you see these abandoned cars and you open up the car doors and you find more ammo, you find more guns, you open up the trunks of police cars, you find additional ammo and additional guns, and zombies are just coming at you relentlessly. Now, this is kind of a horror game, but the good news is it's all happening in the sunshine. And so that takes a little bit of that horror flavor away. So if normally you couldn't handle a game with such realistic zombies coming at you, the bright sunshine allows you to handle it. However, I must warn you that there are certain points of this game where it gets dark and it gets creepy, and Arizona Sunshine can bring that horror factor a little bit during some of the moments. This game has a story. It has an ongoing story. You have a protagonist that speaks and talks. He kind of says what's going on through his mind as he's going through this adventure, but you're there. You're the one making the decisions. You're the one deciding, am I going to take this grenade and throw it at that group of zombies, or am I going to go hide over in the corner and let them come a little bit closer? These are the kind of decisions that you have to make in Arizona Sunshine. The graphics are outstanding. The zombies look different. These are not carbon cut zombies that you see repeatedly over and over again. Now, there's only maybe 15 different versions of the zombie characters, but they're so different and so unique. They have personality. And that's what's really nice here about Arizona Sunshine. Arizona Sunshine is the 4th ranked HTC Vive game. Coming in at number 3 is Pavlov VR. Now, this game was developed by Dave Vills, and this game released back on February 27th of this year. The key thing about Pavlov, it's only $10, so you can get in on this multiplayer action. That's one of the reasons this game has jumped up to number 3. It's only $10, and so many people are jumping into this game. So many people are jumping aboard because it has this multiplayer feeling that is hard to find. This is one of those games that's going to give you that Counter-Strike feel in VR. It's fast, it's easy to pick up and play, and it's one of the more enjoyable multiplayer first-person shooters that we have right now. There's multiple guns, knives, grenades, body armor, all kinds of things that you can buy mid-match. This game uses trackpad locomotion, so you do need to have some good VRC legs if you're going to get through this game. You can hold a rifle with one hand, but your aim will be absolutely terrible. Hold it with two hands and you stand a chance. Move your controllers up and down in unison to line up your rifle and aim down the sights. There are only 2 built-in game maps, but there's so many more in the Steam Workshop, and they keep coming all the time. This game does have a relatively steep learning curve from the control standpoint, but once you know the controls like second nature, this game really takes on a life of its own. We're talking about the number 3 game, Pavlov, for the HTC Vive. Now we get to the number 2 game, and the number 2 game is Raw Data. Now, if you guys saw the Oculus Top 20 ranking that we did a little while back, Raw Data was the number 17th game on the Oculus Top 20, and I didn't understand, why would Raw Data be number 17? This game is so good. Well, I'm not really sure why it ranks so low on the Oculus charts, but I know why it ranks so high on the Vive charts, because Raw Data is the quintessential wave shooter. If you look up VR wave shooter in the dictionary, you should see a picture of Raw Data. Now, Raw Data was brought to us by Survios. This game originally launched way back on July 14th of last year. This game is $40. Now, when this game hit back in 2016, I can tell you this was the first truly AAA game that the HTC Vive had. Remember, at launch, the HTC Vive did have the Gallery Call of the Starseed, which kind of had a little bit of a AAA flavor, but it was a very short, brief experience. Raw Data is the first real banger, and we got it on July 14th, 2016, and this game has been continually updated over all this time. This game has recently come out of early access now. It is completely available. It has PvP, it has co-op, it has a great single player adventure, it has story, it has polish, it has production values, it has robots that can sometimes scare the living daylights out of you. This game puts you into an experience where you feel like you're in the Terminator. You feel like you're in the movie I, Robot or RoboCop. You feel like you're in a movie like that and you're in an environment like that. These robots are coming at you and they're not stopping, and you got to take them out with headshots. There's so much action in this game. It's fast, it's furious, it feels great. The co-op play adds a lot to it, and a lot of people really love the PvP play that Survios has added to this game. That is Raw Data at number 2. Now we've gotten to the number 1 HTC Vive game, and the number 1 game this month on the HTC Vive is Superhot. It's kind of interesting that Superhot hit number 1, because I can tell you Raw Data was the number 1 game in the previous rankings, and before that I believe it was Arizona Sunshine. But Superhot continues to get a lot of play. Now, one thing we have to know about Superhot is this game arrived very late in the year 2016 for the Oculus Rift. It wasn't available for Vive players officially until May 25th. But when it did hit Steam, it hit Steam with a bang, and HTC Vive players have really responded. This game is one of these fast action games that you just want to keep trying. You just want to keep playing. This is a great game for a 25-minute play burst. Is this a game that's going to last you for months and months and months? Probably not. There's not a ton of content here, but what this game does deliver, it delivers one of the most interesting gameplay styles I've seen in many days. One thing that people will think when they see Superhot in motion, they'll be like, oh, this is just a shooter. This is just an action shooter, right? No, Super Hot isn't really what it looks like. Super Hot is actually a puzzle game. This is more of a puzzle game than it is a shooter. Now, are you shooting? Yes, you are. Is there fast action? Yes, there is. But what I like to call this game, it's a marriage between The Matrix and Groundhog Day. So with The Matrix, you have the slowing down of time. You have that Max Payne effect where you can slow down time, and when time is slowed down, you can perform some incredible maneuvers. But it also has that Groundhog Day factor, because what's going to happen in this game is as soon as you move, the enemies can shoot you and the enemies can come at you. So you have to be very careful about when you move and when you don't move. And the Groundhog Day factor comes into play from the standpoint that you will have to play these scenarios over and over again. You will die repeatedly over and over again. The first 8 or 9 times that you play a given scenario, you're probably going to die repeatedly. But eventually you're going to learn it inside and out because you're repeating it so many times that you're going to pull off incredible maneuvers in the same way that Bill Murray pulled off incredible maneuvers in Groundhog Day. You will have that memorization down pat, and you will take advantage of that Matrix and Max Payne slowing down of time, and you will be popping off enemies in their heads. You'll be throwing coffee cups at them, and you'll be having an absolute blast. Super Hot is one of the most enjoyable games in VR on any platform. This game has even come to the PlayStation VR recently, and the PlayStation VR version is very good as well. The Vive version is absolutely outstanding, and that's a big reason Super Hot has hit number 1. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for the HTC Vive Top 20 ranking. Once again, this has been Anthony from VR Game Rankings. This is the update from September 23rd. I will be back later in the month of October with a brand new video and the brand new rankings. Be sure to go to vrgamerankings.com, www.vrgamerankings.com, and submit your own rankings today. We want to hear from all the VR gamers out there. Do you disagree vehemently with this top 20 list? That's perfectly fine. We want that. We like that. Go ahead and disagree and give us your top 20 list. We have a top 100 HTC Vive game list that you can take a look at. Take a look at that list and create your own top 20 and submit your top 20 today. Make your voice heard. See you guys next time.